Hey everybody and welcome. My name is Hack and this is a quick top 5 tips and tricks for power leveling in ESO. I wanted to share this out because many of us will be leveling new characters now for the new Elsewhere chapter, especially since we have the brand new Necromancer class. I know I'll be power leveling a few different Necromancers up myself, and these are basically the main strategies I will be using for that. Before we get started, just a quick disclaimer. If you're new to the game and have never experienced the storylines of ESO, definitely take your time though and enjoy the game for what it is first. You also need to learn how to play the game before you can actually power level. Just keep that in mind. For those of us that are more experienced though, here are my top 5 tips for leveling as quickly as possible in ESO. First tip, we're talking about gearing up your character, and this is extremely important just to make sure you are getting as much experience as possible. The way you do that is with a specific trait of gear called training, which gives you anywhere from 7 to 10 or 11% extra experience. So it's extremely important to get as many training armor pieces as possible. Now you can do this by crafting your own, or there are also some training gear pieces that can drop. For example, I picked up a heavy helm just from an enemy that I killed. And then here I have a 5-piece set that I've crafted in the training trait. So ideally you'll have all 7 pieces of armor here with training. That's going to give you a very good boost to your overall experience gain. You can also pick up training weapons as well. Sometimes these drop from quests or treasure chests, or you even get some of these by the level up rewards. Now again, you can craft these if you have access to a crafter. That would be the best thing to do. There are some pretty decent item sets that you can get early on when you're power leveling that make it easier to level up. One of the ones that I like is this Vampire's Kiss set. This gives me health back, basically a heal every time I kill an enemy. So this is really nice, especially on stamina-based characters who tend to have less healing overall. You can also do sets like Shackle Breaker, for example, which gives you lots of stamina and magicka, as well as recoveries and weapon and spell damage, which is really good when you're starting out. The other thing that will help, it's not necessary, but it will help quite a bit, is if you have training gear that you're crafting, trying to get that to at least purple quality. You can see the difference between a white piece of training is 7%, and purple is 10%, so that's 3% extra experience. And if you multiply that times 7 pieces of armor, that's over 20% extra experience. So I think it's worth it if you are a crafter and you have access to one. Getting these up to purple is going to make a difference. Now, in addition to our training gear, which is really important, we have consumables that should be used. And these come in a couple different forms. You can get the experience scrolls from the Crown Store or from your daily login rewards. This is what I tend to use because I just have tons of these laying around. So you can get the 50% experience, there's 100% experience, or the big Grand Gold Coast experience scroll, which is 150 experience for 1 hour. This is a massive boost. So you want to make sure you have at least one of these running at all times. Like I said, you can get those from daily rewards, purchase them in the Crown Store. There's also a potion version which you can buy from guild traders. The potions and the scrolls do not stack, so just keep that in mind. You can only have one form of those active at once. And then our other consumable that's extremely important, especially with a brand new character, is the food or drink that you're using. So what I recommend for a stamina character is going to be Dubious Cameron Throne, or for a magicka-based character, use Witch Mother's Potent Brew. They basically do the same thing. And the reason why I prefer these is because that first bonus there, that recovery, is what you're going to be missing the most on a brand new character. You're going to be out of stamina or magicka very quick. And so absolutely the best drink that you can get is going to be this, because it increases your recovery by a good bit. All right, for our next tip, we're talking about skills, and specifically having a plan for leveling up as many skills and skill lines as possible. This means you can have as many as 6 different skill lines leveling up at the same time. Now, the most basic thing you want to do is every class has 3 class skill lines, and you just want to make sure you're leveling up one of each skill line so that all 3 of your class lines level up equally. So in my first skill line, I have Crystal Shard. Second skill line, I have my Familiar. And my third skill line, I have Hurricane. So I have 1 of each skill line here for my class. When you level up the first skill from rank 1 to 4, you can choose to morph it or not, and then just replace it with the next skill from that skill line. So I have 1, 2, and 3. Now what a lot of people do is they just throw on whatever weapon skills they want to use on their last 2 slots. So for example, here I have Dual Wield that I'm using on my Stamsork, and I have Bloodthirst and Blood Craze, and I'm currently leveling those. Now this will level up your weapon skill pretty fast, but I'm actually not leveling up any other weapon skills, and I could be. So one thing that you can do is have just 1 dual wield skill or 1 weapon skill here from 1 skill line, and then on my next spot here, I'm going to actually pick a skill from two-handed. Now I don't get to use this skill. It won't work because I'm not using a two-handed weapon, but what's going to happen is I'm going to be leveling up my two-handed skill line while I'm also leveling up my dual wield skill line, which is what I'm actually using. So instead of just leveling 1 weapon at a time, I can now level up 2. Now once your class skill line gets up to level 12, you can then slot an ultimate, and this is really important because what this allows me to do is I can move over one of my class skills from my basic 5 skills to my ultimate slot. So you can see right here, I have a summoning skill on my ultimate. That means I don't need this summoning skill anymore. Once I've done leveling this, I can put another skill line here. And what I like to do is put a 3rd weapon skill. So I'm going to use Bow. Now again, I'm not using my bow on my front bar. This is a dual wield weapon that I'm using on my front bar, but I can level another skill line here even if I'm not using it. So altogether I have 3 class skill lines and I have 3 weapon skill lines that I'm all leveling up at the same time. So this is maximum efficiency pretty much. 3 weapon skills and 3 class skills. That's going to let me level up a lot of skill lines at once. All right, our number 3 tip here has to do with choosing a good grind location. And chances are you'll be doing a lot of grinding in order to power level your characters. So it's important to find a good location that works right off the bat. And there are a couple basic things you should look for, including a high mob density or just a lot of mobs in the area. Easy looping around or like a circular track is also helpful. Fast respawns obviously is what we want. And melee enemies are usually better than ranged enemies. That's because they'll come to you as soon as you aggro them versus staying in one spot and having to go to them. Also, outdoor enemies typically give a lot more experience than indoor enemies, so keep that in mind. Now, I do have 2 other videos on my channel that share some great grind locations, so I'll go ahead and put a link for those in the description in case you want to check those out. For our next tip here, what do you do when you're bored with grinding? Well, you want to make sure to run your character through delves and public dungeons. Why? Delves give a good chunk of experience for completing, but they also give quick access to sky shards, which you'll need a lot of these to make sure you have enough skill points on your new character. Even better than delves though are public dungeons. So not only do public dungeons have a sky shard as well, but they also each have a mini boss that gives 1 full skill point just for defeating it. These are literally some of the fastest skill points you can earn in ESO. So taking a few minutes to clear out a public dungeon every few levels, definitely worth it. Our last tip today is going to be using the activity finder and completing the random dungeon and random battleground once a day for absolutely massive experience gain. I'm talking about earning 3 to 4 levels at once if you have the proper XP boost active on your character. You can actually do this while you're in the middle of a grind spot. Just go through the activity finder menu, queue up, and then as soon as your group is found, you'll be teleported into either a random dungeon or a battleground. Now this can take a few minutes, anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes actually per activity, but I think it's really worth it. In this example, I met some cool people, did a quick dungeon, and I got a total of 3 levels in about 15 minutes, plus loot and a free skill point, so not bad at all. Remember, you can only do one of these per day, but I think it's definitely worth your time, so check that out. And that brings us to the end of our top 5 power leveling tips. Remember that if you enjoyed this video or learned anything at all, I'd appreciate you crushing that like button for me and leaving a comment. It really helps the channel grow and get noticed here on YouTube, which is awesome. If you have any other questions on leveling up, drop those comments as well, and I will try to get those answered for you. Also, if there are any major tips that you think I missed, I'd appreciate you commenting with those as well. We're a community here in ESO after all, and helping each other out is what this channel is about. So again, I appreciate you all very much. Have a great day, and I'll see you around in the next video. Thanks.